Welcome to the Awesome Black Dad Show, where our goal is to give life to the stories of fathers in a way that empowers and encourages dads to become a better version of themselves. This episode kicks off conversations about business and entrepreneurship. And as fathers, we're always told a man should provide and protect, but all too often those conversations stop there. The goal this month is simple: encourage fathers to not just have conversations about business, but to be more deliberate in our pursuit of executing on our passions and building businesses that will outlast us. Today we talk to Darius Grandberry. Darius spent a large majority of his career working in the finance industry, where he's held titles from accountant to the CFO of a very successful private equity firm. We talk about everything from his experience with working for primarily African-American owned businesses to branching out and creating a tech startup with no tech experience, while also keeping himself accountable as a father and a husband. I introduce to you Darius Grandberry. How's your day going, man?
Day is going great, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me here in the basement.
Appreciate you coming back, man. So before we actually get into it, I was flipping through the photo book, and for those of you that are listening, Darius participated in the fatherhood photo book that that I created last Father's Day, and where I gave 8 dads an opportunity to tell a story through images. And so one of the images in Darius's story was specific to the ABT mentality, right? Which is always be teaching.
That's right. That's right.
So when I was looking at that, I was like, I wonder what he's been teaching lately, right? So what's the most recent thing that you can think about that you've taught either your daughter or your son most recently?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm always trying to live up to that mantra. My wife gets on me all the time, like, can you just relax? Let them be kids for a little bit. But yeah, I think most recently, I've been teaching my son about respecting the process of becoming great. And that's a recent change, because before I was having him, I was teaching him to appreciate or love the process. And now I'm thinking I'm more in the mindset that you don't necessarily have to love the process, right? Mm-hmm. But you do have to respect it. So if you're trying to lose weight, you might not love exercising or going to the gym, but you need to respect and honor the process, that if you go to the gym consistently, you eat right, that you'll get the results, commensurate to your effort most of the time. So I'm teaching my son that he needs to respect that process. He goes to piano on Saturdays, and during the week, he goes to piano practice on Saturdays, right? And during the week, I'm fighting with him to practice. And he's like, why do I need to practice? I'm like, well, son, don't you want to be better? And I'll show him video of Stevie Wonder and John Legend. And like, you think they only practice that one day a week when they had class? Yeah. It's more to that. There's a process to becoming great. Yeah. And practice is part of that process. So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to teach him that, man. And I couple that, too, with just, you and I talked about earlier in the year, a small saying that I heard earlier that's kind of guided me through 2019, early 2019, as I've felt overwhelmed by all these projects I have going on. And that's, learn a little, do a little, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to help my son understand that. Every night he does push-ups, he does exercises, right? He does 10 push-ups. And at the end of the month, I asked him, do you think you could do 300 push-ups? He's like, no, that's a lot. Like, that is a lot. It seems like an unattainable goal, right? And then, every day he marks off how many he's done. I say, look at the calendar. You have an X on every day. Yeah. You did 10 push-ups a day for 30 days. Mm-hmm. You did 300 push-ups. You can do it. Like,
what is his response? What is his response to that? Like, what do you? He might not. What is his response? Whether it's nonverbal or verbal. Like, what do you think? You think it's?
I think I think he's starting to get it. Yeah. Like, he understands, like, that's a big number, and there's a sense of accomplishment that you absolutely can see. Yeah. And I think that was just one of those small seeds that you have to start planting early, right? Yeah. A lot of people talk about understanding compounding, You know, we talking about business, like understanding compounding interest and how that can lead to long-term savings. I think this is one of those seeds that if you plant early, can help him understand the value of compounding later and the value of saving later in life.
Interesting.
So,
I think it also helps with confidence and self-awareness.
That's true.
Which is, I believe, is going to be paramount into raising, strong, responsible black men, right?
That's absolutely right.
Absolutely, they're going to have to be confident with themselves because people are going to challenge them and the work that they do as grown men. So they're going to have to be self-aware with all of that. So understanding that setting expectations and goals gets you to a place to where you know what you can achieve.
Right.
And you understand your limits and how limitless you can be, even as you set these limits throughout your life.
Absolutely.
So I think it's that's a pretty dope exercise. I'm still in it, by the way. So just so you know, we're gonna be doing. I mean, we do some other things around the house. I always tell them, we're playing sports now, baseball and basketball, and I tell them, and even with the smallest thing, whether they're playing a video game or not, I'm like, so. Tyler specifically seems to be really competitive in everything that he does. Hates to lose, and does the typical 6-year-old thing. He falls out,
tantrum,
throws the tantrum.
Yeah.
And I just remind him of the fact that if it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right.
Right, and that, and I always ask him. I say, so why do we practice? So we can get better.
That's right.
And so I just kind of keep saying that as a mantra. Right. And so every time when I'm around him and I see that he's gotten better at something, I remind him of the fact that he was just yesterday, you were pretty bad at it and you weren't able to do it. And now what he's doing is when he's starting to recognize his own growth. Yeah. Right. And so the more and more he does it, he still gets frustrated and throws tantrums. But the more and more he does some of those things, he understands and he begins to tell himself that he's done it. He's actually done it. During a basketball game, he stopped and he said something to the rest of the team because they were acting out. And he's like, yo, cut it out. Not in those words, but he like, cut it out, man. We can't quit.
That's outstanding.
Yeah,
man.
I'm like, it just registered like, it's very important for us to be mindful of the things that we say to our children and how they take those things into the rest of their lives.
It's powerful when you see it, right?
Right.
It's like they really are listening to me.
Yeah.
They really are listening to me.
Yeah.
My son, sidebar.
Yeah.
We were at church the other day, and my sister gave him some money, or my mother gave him some money because he just lost his teeth, right? Yeah. And we were driving home, and we went past a homeless guy, and he was like, Dad, did you think about giving him some money when we went past? And I was like, I actually didn't see him. He was like, I thought about it. I had the money, but we went past him so fast. And, that was just the result. He saw me give money to a stranger, and we've had conversations about homelessness and, how.
And so we haven't had that conversation.
You haven't had that,
right? Yeah. And so we're about to get into that whole earn, spend, and save kind of model, right?
Okay,
and or give, spend and give. So understanding that the money, you have a responsibility to your household and to your community, right? Yeah. And no matter how small it is, whatever it is that you decide to do in life and how you feel like you can give back, whether that's walking your block and picking up paper, you're giving back to your community in some kind of way. We haven't started to have that conversation about like homelessness and people, falling on hard times. And sometimes people just need help. Yeah. And if you're in a position to give that help, then maybe you should and give it blindly to some degree and understand that at some point you might be in a position where you might need help, maybe not financially, but spiritually, emotionally, in any other place. And you're going to need somebody to look at you and want to give to you as well. But we're going to we got to start creating these environments because it's not always, we're not always around those things and they forget they got a ton of toys upstairs.
That's right.
And they don't realize that there are kids that don't have anything to play with.
That's right.
Right. They don't even have a sibling to play with. They're in their room making up in their mind, thinking about drawing stuff in their mind on the ceiling. You know what I mean? So that's right. So we got to start kind of manufacturing that environment. But,
so when you figure that out, write it down. Share that with me, brother. I want to use that in my playbook.
Yeah, okay? No, I've actually already started. I will share it with you off air. The wife and I have started something that I think is going to be dope.
That's cool.
So we can actually get into the episode. we can talk about this all day. So
awesome black dad.
Right. So who is Darius Grandberry?
Oh, who is Darius Grandberry? Oh man, I am a husband. a father of two beautiful kids. I am my mother's baby. I am my sister's little brother for life. My sister's little brother for life. I am some of my homeboys' big brothers. You know, I'm just, I think I'm an even keel kind of guy. I'm not too high, not too low. You know, I think I'm at a point in my life where I know what I know. I know what I don't know. And I'm not afraid to ask when I don't know. I'm not really trying to impress anybody anymore, you know. And it's a beautiful thing being at that point in your life, man. I never forget I was in the gym one day. I grew up in the south suburbs. I was over in South Island. Now look at you. Look at you,
I'm
west
just
side.
saying, we're not.
Look at
Every time I get into this, I apologize, people. I do. But go ahead.
I was at the gym, and I remember I was probably like 29 or 30, and I like walked into the dressing room. It was an older gentleman in there, and he's like, "You had a good workout?" And I said something to the effect of, "Yeah, man, but I can't do it like I used to." And he laughed, and he was like, "Man, how old are you?" And I was 29, 30, whatever it was. He was like, "Oh, man, you just on your second time around the block." Right? And I laughed at him, and, you know, I never forgot that. And now that, like, that little saying, like, it means so much to me because, you know, the first, like, 20 years, 30 years of your life, like, you're sprinting around the block, right? You don't really have time to take in the scenery, look at the landscape and the shrubbery.
Right.
But, you know, after you've been around a little bit, you can slow down, you know. Your gait get a little shorter, your stride get a little smaller. But you can look around, you can see why, you know, certain houses are built the way they are, where they are. You know, you just get more aware of your surroundings. And I feel like I'm at that point of a greater awareness.
Yeah,
and,
it comes. I think it comes with life. I think I always used to, growing up, I would always joke with my uncle. He wouldn't, you know, and banter back and forth a little bit, but at the end of it, he'd just be like, "Keep living."
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's effectively
true.
what
That's
it
true.
is. There's certain things that just go unsaid, and then when you get to a certain age or a certain point in life, when you've had enough experiences in life, you're like, I get it.
That's right. That's right.
I get it. And nobody could tell you. They can't.
No.
The most articulate person in the world couldn't tell you or explain that to you. You just absolutely are going to have to go through some of that on your own.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So you grew up in the south suburbs, not even the south side. So you just, you know, you
Come on, man. I grew up
Kankakee.
Look, get out of here. Look, I was gonna say I was from the south side of Chicago, but I know you would have called me out.
Yeah,
and my cousins would have called me out too, because I
Right.
moved out to the south suburbs in
Yeah.
grammar school.
Yeah,
so
cut it out.
I went to high school in the south suburbs.
Be proud of where you from.
I'm a
man.
suburbanite. I'm a suburbanite.
be confident.
Dalton. I went to Thornridge, class of '94, T-Riz, Falcons.
You got the whole spiel.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So grew up on the south in the south suburbs. Did you grow up in a single family home, or did you grow up with your father in the household?
I grew up in a single-family home. My mother remarried when
Okay.
I was in high school, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but always close to my father.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton of siblings, and close to all my siblings as well. I said my mother. I think earlier I said my mother's baby.
Yeah.
So my mother has 3 children. I'm the youngest of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad has a few more than 3 kids. He has. I always got to count, man. I always
Right.
got to count. Like, I always got to look up in the air. Like, am I forgetting somebody?
Right.
I promise you
Yeah.
I do. But he,
Yeah, it's okay. Hold your fingers up. We're not recording.
look,
We're not
look.
video recording this. That's fine.
No, he has, 6, 8, 13 kids.
13 kids.
They span from in their 60s to 16, I think. Yeah.
So you aren't the baby of
I'm
the
not the
family, so-
baby. I'm not the baby anymore. I'm a mama's baby. I'm always be my mama's baby.
Yeah.
And my sister's little brothers.
Uh-huh.
My sister's little brother.
You're right.
But yeah, I'm not the baby. I'm old enough to be daddy to some of my kids. Some of my brothers and sisters.
I guess that's a fair assessment. So are you close with your siblings?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how does that
man.
relationship work?
Absolutely, man. I mean, thankfully, we've had a close family.
Yeah.
As long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
My older brothers and sisters, my father's biological kids and not my mother's biological kids, have always been a staple in my life, man.
Yeah.
I've been there at some of my most, proud moments, graduations, marriages. My oldest sibling's husband actually performed my wedding ceremony. So
That I did not know.
yeah, Reverend.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Julius Trimble. He
Gotcha.
performed the ceremony. That's I always thought he was just my brother. I
Right.
mean, he's my brother-in-law, but he's been around since I was, you know, an infant. So, yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It can be fun to have a ton of siblings, right? In some instances, and it can be bad in others. But I think it's interesting that you guys have stayed so close, right? And so
Absolutely.
Who kind of kept you guys together, right? And I'm asking, and the reason I'm asking that is because historically, when you have these conversations about, siblings in different families, you rarely hear that that they're staying together, right?
Yeah,
You even know that you have an older brother, let alone that older brother or sister is coming to your high school graduations, birthday parties, and so forth. So who made sure, that you guys had that relationship?
Yeah. That's a good question. And I think, a lot of credit goes to my older brothers and sisters for maintaining that relationship. They've always, found ways to keep in touch and be parts of our life. One of my brothers, my older brothers, he moved to Texas, and my sister and I used to go down there in the summers, every summer, to work in his popcorn shop. And he would stop by, he worked for FedEx, and give us like FedEx and DHL buttons and stuff. And we were just happy to get them, but he always reached back. So a lot of credit goes, to my older brothers and sisters for helping, keep those relationships strong. But credit goes to my father and my mother as well. My mother stepped in and took on a very active role in their lives because my mother was my father's second wife. So she stepped in, and she was, a few years older than my oldest sister, So that dynamic, maybe like 10 years older. Yeah. So my father is several years older than my mother.
Okay.
So, but yeah, my mother stepped in, and she took a very active role in being, a mother to them, and they appreciated that. And I think their appreciation for her, their love and respect for her, translated into them wanting to be there for her children, for us. So
that's pretty dope, man. Again, we don't hear those types of stories in our community, man. You just hear a lot about, daddy got a whole nother family on the other side of town.
That's right.
And I don't know. I just know I got a sister or brother. I've never seen them, so it's dope, and I'm sure I'm
glad you highlighted that too, because I probably have taken it for granted.
Right, you take it for granted. I think that story is important, not to just be like outside on a soapbox sharing it, but it's absolutely important to know that is a part of our story, right? Not just the one side. This is the other side of it. So I'm glad that we have an opportunity to have this conversation and talk about those things,
Yeah, man, and it's true. Like when you see images that are just so far different than what you are used to, it's hard to, to grasp them. And I've seen the images of dysfunctional families, and I'm like, no, but I'm part of one that is not.
Right.
So I know they exist, but you don't see that very often. So
it starts to change the expectation, right? And our mindsets for how we believe. Because I think fundamentally we all kind of have this level of dysfunction, whether you want to believe it or not. Every family has their challenges.
That's right.
But then there's things that happen that, for every family that has their challenges with respect to fathers not being in the home, there's a family that looks like us that are working through the challenges to make sure that mom and dad create a decent foundation for to raise kids in.
That's right.
And to raise it and to create a decent family. So it's important that I think that we have these conversations to balance that out, because people just tend to just gravitate towards the negative, and then we begin to believe that that's the normal, right?
Yeah,
that's what happens, and that's what it looks like. And in other quote unquote ethnicities, right? We don't see those stories about them, right? We don't really know. But for us, it's like, why do we always have to hear or think about the negative part of it? Like, where are the families that are doing well? So,
yeah.
I definitely appreciate you for sharing
That's
that.
why I applaud
Yeah.
your efforts at Awesome Black Dad, man. You're changing the narrative. You're putting those images out there to let people know that they exist.
Right.
We're here.
We're here.
We're here too.
Like, stop. We
I
are
love it.
here. I don't
love
believe
it.
what you're saying.
That's right.
And it's not without a struggle, but we fighting to do it.
Absolutely.
So, you grew up in a single family home. And, you graduate from a school in the south suburbs that I don't really want to mention. No, I'm just. And then, education has always been a big part of in terms of what my mom has thought and what she wanted her kids to do. And it's always kind of, pushed like we need to get an education. Was education a big push for you, through, growing up and going through high school? Like in your family, were your sister and brothers, did they go to school?
They did.
Or go to college, rather?
They did. Mm-hmm. They did. All my older brothers and sisters went to college.
All of them? The majority
of them did.
Okay,
my
so you had an
brother
example.
went to the armed forces, but no, I had examples like when I was in high school. I knew I was going to college. Like that wasn't it wasn't a question for me.
Okay,
it was just where,
And so, where did you decide to go?
University of Illinois down in Champaign.
Right. Is that south? No, I'm just kidding. It is.
It is south. It is.
So
south.
you stayed south.
I got on 57 and kept riding until I got there. Yeah, man.
Hilarious. Okay, so you went to U of I.
Yeah, because I didn't get a scholarship to play football in Michigan, to tell you the truth. I don't know how I was going to get that scholarship.
So you played football in high school?
I did play football.
Okay. What position?
I was a defensive back, a wide receiver.
Okay.
But,
Any offers?
Moving on.
You didn't get an offer to Michigan, right? Which is where you wanted to go.
I'm not sure they had my right address.
That's fair enough.
They might have missed.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody was knew where people were without Google Maps. Like, I don't know how people were getting around.
Exactly.
But so you go to U of I. What did you decide to major in at U of I?
So that's it.
Why U of I, and then what did you decide to you wanted to do with the rest of your life?
So I'm serious. I thought I was going to Michigan to play football.
Okay.
Somehow, some way, I thought I was going to Michigan to play football.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't. I didn't apply to University of Illinois. I applied to like Michigan.
So is this like
Stanford.
a Jesus and Mary kind of situation? They didn't have sex, but they had. God and Mary.
Exactly.
And Jesus was born.
I just thought they were gonna like, hey, you want to come play football for us? I don't know how I was gonna get there, but it was my dream. Like I was a huge.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
I was, So I thought I was gonna go there. So in the event, I won a President's Award to the University of Illinois.
What's a President's Award?
It was I think it was $1,000 stipend and guaranteed admission into the university.
How did you go about getting a President's Award?
It was just based on academic performance and I think the fact that I was a minority. I think they gave it out to minorities.
Okay.
So.
Don't sell yourself short. No, I'm just
kidding.
kidding.
I'm not. And actually, you're quite right because I'm not sure if that was necessarily a requirement. But I did win a President's Award. So a good friend of mine, Jason, also won that award. So we went to the banquet together. And when it was clear that I wasn't getting offers from Michigan, to play football, I was like,
you still got this Michigan thing going. Gotcha.
Yeah. I was still holding out hope, man. I had Heisman Trophy, dreams.
Yeah,
but they didn't come to fruition.
Yeah, you done went from Michigan to Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, man. I tell you, I dream big.
Yeah.
But so I had this University of Illinois, offer, I guess, to attend a great school.
Yeah.
I went down to my guidance counselor. I was like, so if I go to University of Illinois or any other school, what are some good majors, right? And we started talking about, what interests me. What subjects I, thought I was pretty good at.
Right.
And, first question was, are you good at math? Or where I'm from, math. With an F.
Right, with an F. Yeah.
You good at math?
Right.
So I said, yeah, I am. It's like, so, Illinois has a good engineering program. And we got into a further discussion about what my parents do. And my father's an electrician. So he's an electrician. Does neon signs, and I worked with him in the summers putting in ballasts and putting in lamps and all that with neon, working on neon signs all across Chicago. So he's like, your dad's an electrician. You're good at math. You can do engineering. How about electrical engineering? I was like, how's the program? Like, excellent. All right. Electrical engineering, University of Illinois. That was it. That's how I decided on a major.
Gotcha.
So I talked to my son a lot about that too. Like, you need to understand what it is you want to do. Right. And there are a ton of options out there and opportunities. And we can get to a long discussion about how do we get our kids exposure to all these other opportunities so they're not limited.
Part two.
Yeah, so we can get into that. But in any event, I ended up in electrical engineering, went down to University of Illinois, took every hard class they had to offer because I thought I was an outstanding student. Didn't ask for much help my freshman year. Found myself on academic probation. Eventually, I was asked to leave the electrical engineer, the College of Engineering. Hey, I didn't see that. That's funny, brother.
Yeah.
I didn't find it that funny. My mother sure wasn't laughing like that.
No, I'm laughing because I'm looking at this timeline, right? So how you go from really high, like I'm going to Michigan to play football, right? And then I get a president's scholarship, and not free admission, but you basically get into, without having to apply, get into the University of Illinois, which is not a bad school.
Absolutely.
Right. You decide you're basically given a career by being asked three very non-specific questions, and you choose electrical engineering, and now it's like, all right, I'm greater than life, and it's like, oh no, life tells you no,
I know.
Wake up,
exactly,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
So
I did a year at the University of South Suburban.
Okay, is it? wait, no, that isn't a thing. The university is it it's not a university, right?
It's not a university. It's a community college. But listen here,
you South Suburb.
I tell you, everybody did a stint at the University of South.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's
so I did a year there and reevaluated what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting readmitted back into the University of Illinois. Went back there, started again in the engineering program. Didn't really like it as much. I started getting into the biology and physics and metaphysics and all these different courses. And I'm like, this isn't necessarily what I want to do. And I wasn't doing very well. I was doing okay. Right. But I was doing extremely well in my business classes, right? Accounting. Everyone hated accounting. I'm like getting A's in accounting. So I went, and looked into getting a degree in accounting, and decided I would go that route. I always wanted to have a business foundation, right? So even when I was engineering, I was minoring in business because I grew up, my father was an entrepreneur. Like, I always thought that at some point I would take that entrepreneurial step and that I needed business to set me up with a good foundation to succeed when I did make that leap. So it was a natural move over to accounting. And accounting was like University of Illinois had the #1 accounting program in the nation. So it wasn't a step down by any means. Right. So I ended up graduating from the University of Illinois with an accounting degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's time to get into the real world. Now it's time to pay some bills.
That's right.
Time to make a decision about where you're going to spend the rest of your life, right?
That's
in
right.
terms of a career. So walk me through what your process was in terms of thinking about, because obviously starting out, engineering was pretty much given to you, and then you were forced to kind of make the decision based on what, how you were doing in school, the direction you wanted to go and what you wanted to get your diploma in or your degree.
That's right.
And now it's time to really to make a solid decision about what you want to do for the rest in terms of your career, the rest of your life. So what was your next steps? Like after you graduate, it's like, all right, time to get in the real world.
That's right. So, University of Illinois does a good job of, trying to place you
right
at, different companies, and a lot of top accounting companies, or like E&Y, PwC, Arthur Anderson at the time, did a lot of heavy recruiting at the University of Illinois because it was the top accounting program in the country. So, I went down that route of applying and going to the conferences and setting up meetings. But I got one email And I think email was around at that time.
You're not that old.
Hey, look, I did get an email.
Yeah.
From a company called Washington Pittman and McKeever.
Okay.
The managing partner, Lester McKeever, was he also attended the University of Illinois, so he did heavy recruiting there.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me to come in for an interview. Said, before I go anywhere else, just come in and have a conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't heard anything about this company ever before.
Mm-hmm.
They're located in Chicago.
Okay.
Went and sat down with him and had a wonderful conversation. Found out that the founder of the company was a woman by the name of Mary Washington, who was the first African-American CPA in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and she's from Chicago, and she started a firm here, and I have never heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
So much history. Like, I was like, I absolutely want to hear more about an opportunity to add to that legacy. So, long story short, I came back. Mr. McKeever wanted to sit down with me again before I make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, I decided that I wanted to work with him to help build Washington Pittman and McKeever into something special. They had some really, really grand ideas and thoughts about where they can take the firm, and given the history and the legacy there, I just wanted to be a part of it. And I sacrificed salary. I sacrificed the, going to work for a big 5 or 6 company to go there. But I think it was absolutely worth it. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Kind of like how you sacrificed Michigan for Illinois?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that? Gotcha. Yep.
But yeah, man. So I ended up at Washington Pittman McKeever, Public Accountants. As a senior auditor, I stayed there for 8 years, learned a ton about, the business world and accounting and professionalism. From there, I actually took a small leap of faith and moved over into the world of private equity, where I started out as an assistant controller for a small private equity fund of funds.
What is private equity?
So private equity, I'm sure you're familiar with public stocks, public companies. So private capital is another way of investing in companies, right? So you raise money from institutional investors, and you invest in companies that are not traded publicly. So if they're traded publicly, you can buy stock into the company. But if they're not, they seek capital from private investors. So we, in the private equity world, raised capital from institutional investors, which we invested into fund managers who went out and invested into these companies privately.
Okay.
So that was our role in private equity.
So you were basically the middleman. You went out, secured funding for a company that's trying to grow and needs capital to grow. Right?
That's right.
And they don't have an IPO, so they're not publicly traded companies, but they still need capital. And so you're the middleman. You go procure the funding, and then you go look for you provide this funding to those businesses for them to grow. Right. Basically.
Right. That's what a fund of funds is. It functions more as a middleman. We raise the capital, but they're direct investors too that actually have capital that they invest directly into the companies.
Okay.
So that's
Gotcha.
Again, it's private capital.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
And so you started out there as a comptroller?
Assistant controller. Assistant controller.
I don't know where I get that from.
Assistant controller.
Right.
In the back office, we were, small team, 10 people, I think, when I started, $100 million under management. By the time I left, we had grown to near $1 billion in management. We had one fund when I started. When I left, I think we were at 7 or 8 funds, overseeing 50 or so fund managers. So we had grown over 10 years. And from there, I stepped out into the entrepreneurial world.
Right. So before we get into that, you made the jump from Washington Pittman and McKeever.
That's right.
To the private equity space.
Yeah.
Right. What was the impetus behind you making the jump from Washington Pittman and McKeever to the private equity space? Like, why did you make that? Was it purely career advancement? What did you like about? Because it seems like early on when you talked about Washington, Pittman, and McKeever, there was a whole lot of legacy and the story behind the business that brought you in, right? Does that same thing exist with, or did it exist? The second jump.
The second jump. Yeah, Muller and Monroe Asset Management is the name of this, the private equity firm, and it's African American owned and operated too.
As well.
Yeah. So the legacy piece is there as well. It was an opportunity for me to grow with a company, and be on the ground floor, be part of the foundation of seeing that organization grow and succeed. Working in the world of public accounting, I was able to see many different companies and go in and make recommendations on how they should improve. I got to a point where I just wanted to be part of an organization and see my recommendations and see actually implement it, right? And just be part of a team that actually grew that company, and watched it grow into what we expected it to be. So I wanted that experience. So that's why I made the jump. And I always wanted to, get into the investment world. I mean, accounting is, and I was counting people money for a long time. So I just wanted to get more familiar with the investment world. It was a great opportunity. Passed to me through my network, and interesting enough, they were looking for an assistant controller for some time. I said it was African American owned, but the person that was hiring was a Caucasian woman, and at the direction of the owner, who was African American, she was told that she needed to hire someone that did not look like her, and that was his effort to promote diversity within the organization. And we maintained that throughout my time there to promote diversity within the organization. So she had an extremely hard time trying to find an African-American male CPA to fill that role.
I can imagine that being challenging.
Yeah, it was challenging. And she admittedly didn't think it would be that much of a challenge. And it was surprising to her that there were not as many African Americans.
Was it surprising to you?
No.
Okay.
The numbers are small.
Yeah.
The numbers are small. In retrospect, too, it was a small organization. So the African Americans who were CPAs were probably working at the Big Five or the Big Six.
Right.
So, to leave a well-established organization to join what was essentially a startup, a minority-owned startup.
He has a huge leap of faith.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. But it was right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that worked right. That worked right in your favor. So you spent a lot of time in these African American small businesses where I imagine that you were wearing a ton of hats and you learned a lot of things. So what was one of the lessons that you feel like you learned from that experience before we move into the entrepreneurship?
Yeah, man, I learned a lot. Like I said, professionalism at Washington, Pittman, and McKeever. Lester McKeever was is a wonderful mentor and resource. He taught us a lot about, what's expected of us, and I was thinking about this the other day. I did grow up in the South suburbs, right? So from the time I was in grammar school through college, I was always like the minority in my class. Like I was always the minority. And I was in honors classes as well in grammar school and high school. So I was always one of the few minorities in those classes. So when I was exposed to Washington, Pittman, and McKeever, it really appealed to me because I thought this was the first time I could, like, if I were to walk into a room and be one of the few minorities, at least I'll be walking into the room with a team of minorities who were on the same page. And that was powerful. And I loved it. Like, black professionals walking in with their briefcase and, really, really good at what we do. Like that was powerful. And even when I moved over to Mullen Monroe, that part of that was something that really, you know, kind of, you know, made me want to be part of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to again let the world know that we exist, man. Black professionals working together,
Mm-hmm.
building something that's sustainable. So through that, you know, I learned that as African Americans, we you know, we are held to a different standard.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to play like
Inside the house and outside.
inside and outside, man. Like we are expected to do more
Mm-hmm.
with less. And you know, sometimes it's unfortunate, but it's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, everywhere I worked, we stepped up to that challenge and met it. And we're successful. You know, I learned a lot about succession planning too.
Mm-hmm.
That is very important, man. You know, in the African American community, when we're building businesses, we have to think long term and longevity and how we sustain it and who do we bring in to ensure long term success for our organizations. And I've over the years seen a lack of that
Mm-hmm.
in minority owned businesses. So, you know, as I grow in business and as I counsel other small business owners, that's something that I pay close attention to.
Yeah, it's not just. It's interesting that you bring up succession planning because I find that even in my own experience, it's not just businesses where it's not just business where we fail to plan for when we're not here.
Yeah.
Or after us when we leave something.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that in our community that we begin to do that. Like that needs to be the basis for, or the starting point, the jump off point. When you're thinking about starting a family, that's when you need to start thinking about what the aftermath looks like.
Yeah.
We just don't have that conversation in any capacity. And so I imagine that it would begin to leak over into what it takes to maintain, because you have to do so much.
Yeah.
You got to think about not only the main focus is how to sustain it right now. Like, why am I thinking about what's going to happen after I leave?
That's right.
If I can't figure out how to keep it here, keep it going, keep it afloat while I'm here.
That's right.
But I think it's just as important.
Yeah.
In both family and in business. So yeah, I think it's very important that I'm glad you brought that up.
No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. My father, he'll be 85 soon. You know, it's like pulling teeth trying to talk about
money
wills
and will. Yeah.
Oh man.
Right.
Like, y'all good kids. Y'all will figure it out. Like, come on,
man. Right.
You got kids that are 16, 17 years old. Like the need and the resources. It's just such a disparity. Like,
yep.
And I've seen the aftermath of not taking succession planning and estate planning seriously.
Yep.
And I don't want to do that to my family. So
no, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah.
I just did an episode. I shouldn't say just, but one of the episodes called the LeBron Effect. Basically talks about succession planning and what it means to be a real leader, right? So leaders, typically when you would gauge a good leader by what they left behind and how well, in the case of a family, how well a family is doing after the quote unquote leader has left the establishment, whether they left because of divorce or whether they left because of untimely demise. I've seen situations where someone passes away and then the wife and the kids have to completely start over. They don't know where the next dollar is coming from to be able to pay the mortgage. The kids don't know whether they're going to be able to go to college. You know, that fund stops, and it's just a snowball rolling downhill, right?
Yeah.
Those questions and conversations we just do not have in a way that we can execute on it, and we're prepared for these things.
That's right.
And so I'm pretty adamant about it, especially in 2019, to get my household in order, because there's some things that I haven't done for myself and my family that I try to like have conversations with others about. And I'm like, I had to slap myself in the face. Like,
I know.
Get yourself together first before you go out and
that's right.
Get to telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing. And that pertains to my mom and our parents. Right. So I want to have conversations with them because they're theoretically closer to what we would consider to be the end. That's a harsh way to say it a little bit, maybe. But like, what are you doing? And what would you want me to do if you're gone and turn, how would you want me to, if there's money left and so forth and so on. And it's like, how can I have a conversation with them? And I haven't done.
That's right.
I haven't.
That's right.
Put what I want to be done on a napkin.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's just looking myself in the mirror and saying, all right, get your shit together.
That's right.
And then you can have that conversation with everyone else. And not in a way that you feel like you're better than anybody, but just so you know that what people want.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So yeah, man, it's that we got to continue. That's a whole nother conversation in terms of succession planning. And I definitely want to have some more episodes about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that we've had the potatoes, let's get to the meat, right? You took your talents to South Beach to satisfy your insatiable hunger for entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, man. I think I'm just a little crazy is what it is.
Right. So you move on from a traditional career in the financial spaces, and what are you doing today?
I'm working with Gold Leaf Capital Partners.
Right.
I'm managing director at Gold Leaf Capital Partners. We help small businesses secure financing. What we notice is there's a huge disparity in access to capital for small businesses, in particular minority-owned businesses. So the founder of the firm, Jeff Wright, is a longtime commercial banker, and in his role, he saw that disparity firsthand. So he decided once he left where he was, instead of going somewhere else, to start his own firm to kind of address that problem by leveraging the relationships that he has. So I joined to help, further that movement, using leveraging the relationships I have and my understanding of business to help do that. So
keeping with the theme, though, this is another African-American owned business, right?
Another African-American, man.
Keeping with the
theme.
My
brothers.
I hear you, man.
I would.
Fighting a good fight.
And coming out of college, I wish I would have, I could say that was my goal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I took my diploma and I had my fist raised, like, Black Power.
Yeah.
But, Washington, Pittman and McKeever found me. Mm-hmm. And once it found me, I couldn't get out of servicing. So, but yeah, man, another African American owned firm, where we're trying to help. I mean, we're helping all small businesses, so it's not in particular minorities. It's just it happens to be our network,
right? Because that's where the gap was,
and that's where the gap was. That's where the gap is.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about Chicago small businesses. Minorities make up the lion's share of those businesses. So we're trying to help them, right?
Yeah.
You see a lot of businesses that have been around for years that are kind of muddling along and they're doing okay, but they don't know how to take that next step to grow their business. So that's what.
And so how do you go about, and not to give away all your secret sauce, right? But how do you go about getting them to understand in this consultation, getting them to understand what opportunities are available to them in a way to grow their business and become more successful so they can start thinking about succession planning?
Yeah, man. It's no secret sauce. It's just having a conversation.
Okay.
It's not only a lack of access to capital in our community. It's also a lack of access to knowledge. So,
which is interesting in the age of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Or people don't know where to look. I don't know. But part of our offering is just being available to offer up that knowledge, So I don't think it's a lot of convincing. It's just talk to me. What is it that you're trying to do? Right.
So what type of knowledge do you see, in your experience up until this point, like now, what type of knowledge, where's the biggest gap there, do you think? Like, where do you find yourself spending a lot of time trying to explain to these small businesses in terms of that knowledge gap?
Yeah, I think it's around capital planning, the use of leverage. A lot of the capital we secure is through debt financing. So, in our community,
that's gotta be interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, in our community, it's like,
so debt financing,
loans.
That's basically okay.
Yeah, loans, taking out loans, using leverage though. Right. So getting people to understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Getting people to understand the power of leverage, right? taking out a loan. Right. So it's.
Give me an example of the power of leverage.
I have $15,000.
Okay.
And I can buy a property, a foreclosed property for 12 and try to put, another 10 in it and sell it for 50, maybe, right? I make a nice return, 30 some odd $1,000, right? Or I can walk in the bank with that same 15, leverage it 10 times, get $150,000. Now go buy 5 properties. Do the same thing, put 10, 15 in each. Now I walk away with 30 times 5, $150,000 in profit, right? So you just, multiply your earnings exponentially. I mean, by using that same $15,000. Right. Right. So getting people to understand that, and that's how you take that next step, like buying these one-off properties. Now, if you want to increase your portfolio, how do you do that most effectively? So we help communicate to them how they do that, what's the right amount of leverage to take. There's terminology within, finance that they don't quite grasp, maybe debt service coverage ratios, like how much, basically all that is saying is how much can you pay back based on the money that you make, right? So we get to a real number that makes sense for them. One of the interesting things, man, is just trying to get people to pay their taxes. You know what I'm saying?
Small businesses to pay their taxes?
Yeah. I mean, everyone is.
Because not paying your taxes affects the way that the amount of debt that you can leverage.
The amount of, the access to the financing, right? A lot of lenders are asking for 2 years business tax returns, or they get their tax returns, or you say you have a successful business. Right. And then you get your tax returns and you're showing a negative net income or a low amount of profit. And it's all because you've try to devise ways to pay less taxes, but you don't understand how that's hampering your ability to grow. Yeah, to grow in the future. Yeah. So just educating them in that regard, right?
And maybe it's because a lot of people that the understanding of that maybe the way people think about how they can use and leverage small businesses, the way that they've been taught is that they can use it as a wash, right? You can wash, I shouldn't say launder money, but in terms
reinvest the money,
right? Like it's not the thought about how I can grow it so that taxes aren't that big of a deal for me, and I'm okay with paying it. It's okay because some people use LLCs for as an example as a way to lower their own tax position so they don't have to pay as much, right? Or anything at all for that matter. Never really thinking about using that position or that business to go into a bank and get loans and do what you said in terms of growing and expanding from a real estate perspective. So I would agree that the knowledge surrounding LLCs, not LLCs, but small businesses, it definitely needs to grow within our community and understand what the power of owning your own business.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. And again, a lot of it is about just having those conversations about what your goals are, right? Are you okay at the level of business that you're doing now, or do you want to grow? And if so, these are the changes you need to make internally. And these are a lot of, I've come from places that have the resources to pay for CFOs and full accounting departments, but these small businesses, they don't necessarily have that, right? They may have an accountant, they may have a bookkeeper, but they don't have anyone to really talk to them about capital planning and how to set their business up for success. And you got a lot of contractors and other entrepreneurs out here that want to bid on jobs, and they just can't because they don't have the resources to satisfy the job requirement. And there's a real disparity there. And I can get to a long conversation about like the roadblocks and the hurdles that minorities and small businesses have to jump through just to compete. But it's important that we have resources available to those businesses for those people that want to grow their business, and Gold Leaf looks to be one of those resources for the small business community.
Right. And so why do you consider what you're doing with Gold Leaf a variation of entrepreneurship?
Because it's 3 guys trying to build a business. Our paychecks, no one's writing one side of the paycheck. every week, every 10 days to us.
Okay.
We're out here trying to sell services to a small business community. Mm-hmm. This is professional services. So we're trying to build clientele. We're trying to, convince people that what we're doing is adding value.
Right.
Beyond just having a conversation, that it's value worthy of, writing a check for.
Sure.
So
so when the small business, if I'm a small business and I come to you for what I'll call consultation at this particular point in time, but from what you're saying is you go through the consultation period and then you walk them through the entire process in terms of getting to the place where where you help them complete the documentation to walk into a bank.
That's right.
Right. And secure funding for whatever it is that they need. So you walk them through you're with them that whole entire process.
That's
right?
absolutely right.
And so if I'm a small business and I come to you, do I have to come to you with money in hand? How does the payment and transaction between that work in terms of your services for helping me do that?
No, you do not have to walk in with payment in hand.
Okay.
We're more than happy to have a conversation to determine if you are actually, if you truly need capital at this point. So we want to hear we want to hear the story.
Sure.
And we want to hear the goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will determine, whether seeking financing is what you really want or need.
Right.
We also offer CFO advisory services. So maybe it's not that you necessarily need financing at this time, but you need a true financial professional to help you make financial decisions
Okay.
on a weekly, monthly basis.
Right.
Maybe you're contemplating new hires or expanding or, acquiring a business.
And that's more like a retainer service, right?
Yeah, so that would be on retainer. So the CFO advisory services are on retainer. We take a percentage of the money we raise on the debt side. Mm-hmm. So if we decide that if you're doing a commercial real estate purchase, you're looking to buy a building for $500,000, we'll help you secure the $500,000 to buy it, and we take a percentage of whatever it is that we raise for you.
Okay.
Yeah. At closing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then when you talk about capital planning, right? Is that the understanding capital planning is like after you receive like the debt financing for what it is that you were seeking or your goals, and then understanding what you're going to do with that money and how you're not going to misuse it? Is that what capital planning is? Okay.
Absolutely. How am I going to use the capital that I'm raising?
Okay.
And how am I going to use that capital to generate revenue to help service
and pay back this debt that you just put
exactly.
I just put myself in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So we want to make sure that you have a solid plan in place, right, to pay it back.
Yeah.
And just not trying to get people money just to walk away.
Sure.
And not have the ability to repay it. So you have to think through that whole process.
Okay.
And again, a lot of small businesses, I talk to so many people who just want to have that conversation and they don't know who to have the conversation with.
Yeah.
And, and quite honestly, people are somewhat shy and embarrassed to have that conversation with people in their circle, their peers. Like I've talked to people that have been in business for a decade, maybe even more. And they're like, man, if you peel back the onion, it's ugly back here. I just been kind of making it work.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let everyone know.
Yeah. That I'm in some trouble.
I'm in some trouble, or I'm, a few steps away. So we try to come in, be that ear.
Yeah. So that financial conversation is a challenge for us, and personally, and business. Like we do not, when it comes to money, it's just how to use it, how to keep it, how to save it, spend it. It's just, we learn as we go. We've lost a lot. I've lost a ton of money.
Yeah, brother.
And continue still to kind of, to some degree, man, I wish I wouldn't have did that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I can understand with small businesses, it's kind of, it would be even more challenging. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the thing that you would say, what is the advice that you would give small business owners today that really that don't have you to talk to, right? So obviously we're gonna, we want them to talk to you. But a small business owner, what's the advice? Where should they start in terms of figuring out whether or not they need to come and sit down with you?
Honestly, I think small businesses know if they're in trouble or on the verge of trouble and that they need to do something about it. Be proactive is my biggest.
But are you suggesting that the only situation you need to be in to think about having this conversation is that you might be close to trouble?
No.
Right,
That's what I'm saying. So no.
Okay.
That those that are in trouble, they know that they need to seek guidance,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I'm saying. I think people need to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my biggest word of advice. Like if you know what your goals are, or you should be establishing goals for 2-3 years down the line.
Yeah.
Once you've established those goals, be proactive in planning on how you get there. Mm-hmm. Don't just assume it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So those goals 2 or 3 years from now may require you to change your tax situation now so that you look more bankable 2 years from now, right? So, or it may require you change the corporate structure of your business. Mm-hmm. Those silent partners that do nothing, but they helped you get into business. Oh, but they own over 20% of your company, but their personal situations are all messed up.
Right.
Now you may go seek a loan 2 years from now, realize they own 20% or more. They have to personally guarantee. Now you got to bring them into the whole borrowing situation, or you're going to have to change the ownership of your company. So all those loose ends that you know are there.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, because I wouldn't know. Like, I wouldn't know that little small incidental detail. Like, if you own 20%, I didn't, and I'm going to secure. I would imagine it's you can take an educated guess of the fact that they're going to look at everybody that has
on a certain percentage.
Yeah, on a certain percentage. You know what I mean, in terms of procuring a loan. But we can't assume that we don't know. I was just having a conversation with a friend, and I was telling him about the opportunity for how you can cut down on your mortgage just by splitting it in half, right? And I made the assumption that and I made the assumption that they knew. I was just like, I never mentioned it because I thought, maybe you knew. Just making the assumption when it comes to these financial decisions, and
that's right.
There are people out here that just don't know. So for those that are listening and you don't know, you can split your payments, right? As long as it's not explicitly written into your mortgage contract, right? You can split your payments in half, and that effectively works out to be an additional mortgage payment at the end of the year, right? And if you do that for the duration of your loan, you wind up knocking off roughly between 5 and 7 years of your mortgage, right? And so it's like that's gold when you think about it. So you're doing that without even making an additional payment, and then let's say you take an additional $100 every quarter and throw it towards your mortgage. You find yourself in a 15-year mortgage really quickly when you started out with a 30-year mortgage and you didn't have to do anything differently without raising your mortgage payment. Right. So those conversations, we need to stop assuming. For sure. Yeah. So even more interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I'm peeling back the layers and the things that you do and all these hats that you wear, and I'm not sure how you're doing it. I'm not sure who's getting neglected in this situation, but while you're working for Gold Leaf, right, and doing that work there, you've also started a new endeavor in terms of becoming a non-tech founder yourself, right?
That's right. On
your own. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. The project is called League Swipe. Mm-hmm. You're a sports fan, I know.
I am a sports fan. Yeah.
You play fantasy sports, right?
I used to. I
you
don't.
Used to, you
I'm on and off. I flipped the switch. I haven't played in about 2 years.
Yeah.
The whole Kaepernick situation.
Oh, is that what it is?
I mean, I just kind of at the time.
Fantasy baseball.
There is. I can't do that. That's too much. It's too much to handle.
Yeah.
The baseball and basketball. It just takes too much.
I know. Yeah. Some to each his own. I've been playing for 20 years, man. I play multiple sports.
Right.
It's like a year-round activity for me and most of my friends, man. So I'm a huge sports fan, like I said earlier, and you know that.
Yeah.
I could talk sports all day.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, when I was watching TV and all I saw was like the FanDuel and DraftKings commercials, I was like, man, what? These dudes have actually figured out a way to make some money off fantasy sports. They are here, they're here promising people $1 million paydays. Like, I've been playing fantasy for 20 years. I've never thought that I could win $1 million playing fantasy. But any event, You know, they figured out a game to make it work, and they were getting investors, and they had billion-dollar valuations. I'm like, I got to find a way to get my hand in this pot and build me a business. And at the same time, man, I was commissioner in a few leagues, and we were getting ready for the football season to start. And we were running across the same issue in each one of my leagues, and that's collecting money and paying money out to the winners timely. Like, we had people who, hadn't paid their last year fees. And we had winners who were still waiting on 2 people to pay so they can get the rest of their money and all that stuff. So, my background is in accounting and finance. So
dollars and cents.
Transactions. That's right, man. Yeah. So I endeavored to build, it's essentially the digital wallet for the fantasy sports world, where you can collect pay-ins and make payouts easy, transparently. If you play in 10 different leagues with different formats, we can handle all the payouts and add drops and all that, man.
Right. So no more quick pays.
No more
walking around trying to meet me at the bar and make the $20 payments.
No, man.
Or can I pay you next week kind of deal?
Yeah, none of that. What do you use Venmo? No, I got Zelle. None of that, man. Right. You got League Swipe. Let's transact.
Right.
Let's create our league. Let's transfer money, man. Right. And it's cool. It's super excited, man. I've been at it, building it. We got some traction.
So you're live?
Yeah, we got a beta version.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can actually go on and use League Swipe.
LeagueSwipe.com. LeagueSwipe.com. So LeagueSwipe.com, man. Ironically enough, I was in a pitch competition earlier this week, and I'm part of a cohort where we're working on our pitches and building our story and our narrative so we can go out and raise some real money. And we had a pitch competition at the end of the cohort where the winner gets refunded the price of the course, man. And I won.
Well, congratulations on that. I mean, I think it's a dope idea. When you started telling me about it, I initially I thought it was something different. And then when you started, we had a more in-depth conversation about what it is, and I was like, yeah, how can I give you $20 to put?
I'm gonna tell you how.
Right.
Yeah, man. So. Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I really want it to become the lifestyle brand for fantasy sports. Like, I see it being, like I said, the digital wallet. Like, you have American Express. You had Traveler's Check for traveling, American Express, you don't leave home without it. Like, you got your Home Depot card for your home improvement needs. You got that one credit card you use to book flights because they got the most points.
Yeah.
I want you to use League Swipe when you conduct any sports-related transaction. So it's going beyond fantasy. It's going to be a marketplace where you can buy tickets to a game at a discount, or you can buy apparel, or you can buy anything related to sports. So
now, the features and functions that are available today,
the ability to collect money for your leagues and do the payouts.
Now, one of the things that you can do payouts, that's really important. One of the things that when I was running, because I used to run my own fantasy league as well, one of the things that, because we talk a lot of trash, right? It's just what happens with sports, the competitive nature of it. And so you start doing these side bets. Well, I bet you a beer. Well, I bet you $20 over here or there. And facilitating that particular transaction, most times it often just turns into friendly banter back and forth. You can't really. That's right. We don't. When we meet up to get a beer, then we'll do that. Or if it's money, we just talk and we don't transact because it's just harder for me to be like, well, how you gonna get it, right?
Well, we just made it easy. We just made it easy.
Okay,
we support that. Yeah, peer-to-peer transfers. Right. You can do side bets right there within the platform. Instant transfers.
So you're telling me with the side bets, like we can say, I bet you on Sunday I beat you by 10, and then you can fund the account, like you can start a bet, fund the account, and it's there. And then when the bet is over,
you can transfer.
Money, they don't have to transfer. Does it release automatically? That
will be in a future iteration.
Gotcha.
That will be in a future iteration. That will be in a future iteration. But that's absolutely
right. But it gives you the ability to the money's here, transfer and move on. We got to worry about where we're gonna connect and stuff like that.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, we're at beta, so we just moved past proof of concept. Right. I'm building it out, but all that functionality will be in there, man. And again, like this is my community. I know, like that pain point that you're talking about. Like, of course, I'm gonna address it.
Yeah,
like I'm gonna put it in there. And I tell people all the time, like, they ask me like, why me? Why are you doing this?
Yeah,
this is my community, dude. Like, I'm not, one of these Ivy League dudes that said I'm gonna make a buck off of the fantasy community. Like, this is me. I've been playing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
But oh, by the way, I am an accomplished financial professional.
Right.
I'm a CPA. I was a CFO.
Right.
So I kind of know that people pay good money for people who can move money efficiently.
Right.
Do it securely, transparently. And,
you're the right person for the job. You're the right person for the
man.
job, man.
So I'm excited about it, man.
I'm excited too. So tell me a little bit about how we can, how people like me can get involved with participating in getting Leap Swipe from beta version to full on. Let's let the world know that we're here to be the digital wallet for fantasy football.
So we're actually doing a crowdfunding campaign. Yeah. We're launching at the end, March 15th.
Okay.
March 15th is the target launch date now. The platform is called Start Engine, and we're looking to raise minimum $107,000. And once it goes live, everyone could come on, take a look at the platform. If you're excited about it as we are, man, donate.
So let me get this.
Not donate, invest. You can
invest.
Let me say you invest. I'm giving people opportunity to invest in a tech company.
Right. So actual ownership.
Ownership in this company that I think has a ton of potential. And I've been out marketing it, and there's a lot of people are excited about it, man. And I made it a point to do this crowdfunding campaign initially for family and friends to be a part of it, man. Because we hear all of these athletes and entertainers who were early investors in these companies, like they need the money, but they have access to these companies. They're in the rooms where people are talking about the next Uber, and so I think I have something here, and I want people who know me and are excited about it to have an opportunity to invest alongside, take some ownership.
So we want to know where, so that we can always follow up, where does League Swipe exist? Social media platforms, like where's that?
LeagueSwipe.com is the website. Come on, sign up, join. Facebook, League Swipe LLC, and on Twitter at League Swipe. Check us out. Hit me up. Yeah. Let's have a conversation, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm pretty excited. I've signed up, even though I'm not even, I'm not even playing fantasy football or at this particular point in time.
That's okay.
I may get back into it because it is fun. It is fun, but
the other thing too. I mean, like it is fun, and it is an opportunity for people to stay connected. Like it's become more than just playing sports. Like it's a way for friends who grew up together who don't really stay in contact to have that season out of the year to actually interact and engage, and that it's a real opportunity there, man.
No, I agree. I can't wait, man. So we'll definitely stay in line with what's going on with League Swipe for sure. So I appreciate your time for coming, for you giving us the time before we let you get out of here. I really want to get, I have two questions I want to ask that I pretty much end each one of my shows with, but I don't want to go on and ask those questions before you give us the information in terms of the gold leaf.
Yes.
Right. And let us know how we can get in contact with you with respect to building our small businesses within our community. So we can talk to you, and whether it's just a 15-minute consultation on the phone, how that works, give us that information as well.
Yeah, you can check out our website, goldleafcp.com, GoldLeafCP.com. You can email me directly at Darius@goldleafcp.com, Darius, Darius, at goldleafcp.com. Or give me a call, 312-971-6706. More than happy to have a conversation. League Swipe, look for us. We're raising money. StartEngine.com is the platform. But you can check us out at LeagueSwipe.com. Check us out on Twitter. We'll have updates on there all the time at League Swipe, or our Facebook account, League Swipe LLC.
Yeah, and then mention the Awesome Black Dad Show, and he'll give you some money off on something.
On
I ain't
something.
sure.
On something. Mention it. Absolutely. Hit us up. At Awesome Black.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't have that much power in that space just yet.
No.
So before we go, finish the sentence for me. A father should.
A father should listen to their children. We talked earlier about ABT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always be teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my mentality. Like, I'm always like, this is an opportunity for me to teach a lesson. But at the same time, we as parents, we as fathers need to sit back and listen to our kids. Because we'd be surprised with what they learn at such an early age and what we can uncover about, what they've learned and how they're processing it. And it can go a long way about helping their growth. So I encourage all fathers, man, listen to your kids. If you got multiple kids, I know it's hard sometimes to separate the kids and have a long time, but find time to sit down with each one individually and just have a conversation and listen to them. The reality is there's a lot of, suicide and depression and with adolescents and teens, man, and a lot of those issues and hurts could be identified early if we just have those conversations and listen and try to address them early. And it's hard, with social media. These kids are confronted with issues daily. Before, if you had a bully at school, at least on the weekends you had a reprieve. Now, right. Social media, it can hit you every day. Or the insecurities that you have are manifested because, they get caught up with looking at Instagram and Facebook and seeing the visions and the images of what they think other people's lives are, and they're comparing it to their own, and that those insecurities only grow and fester and can be dangerous. So listen for the signals early on to help identify those and address them. So talk to your kids, man. Don't just be yelling at them and telling them.
I'm working on it. I'm working. Second question is, give me 3 things that you're currently doing to become a better version of yourself.
Oh man, I start physically, man. I'm working out, trying to work out a little bit more. I tore my Achilles, just one of them. I know you. Yeah,
you're preaching to the choir, man. I've torn both.
Oh man, so I tore mine, and that's not nice, especially when you're over 40, trying to come back from that. So I'm just trying to get back into the gym and get my wind up and be consistent with it. Through this, trying to build 2 businesses and raise 2 kids. I'm just making sure I stay consistent.
Everything in twos with you, huh?
I know.
2 kids, 2 businesses,
2
wives? No, I'm just kidding.
I can't afford it. Nor do I want it.
Right.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But that's one. I think we talked about this, man. I'm meditating more. I think I started listening to what's the app, Headspace, a couple years ago, and I would listen to it on the train, and I would go to work and be a lot more energized. So, but I kind of fell off using it. I think I was listening to the unpaid version when they started asking for money. I was like, nah. But now on YouTube, there's so many different channels that you can use, and I'm starting to use those, and there's power in it, man. Before you go to sleep, I do a mindful meditation in the morning when I get up to kind of get me settled for the day or get me right for the day. And I found it very useful, man, and powerful. So I'm doing that.
And third,
what am I doing to better myself? What am I doing to better myself?
It's tough, ain't it? That means you got to pick up a third.
No. What am I doing? I mean, everybody talk about reading. I tell you my take on reading, though. I try to read more often. One of the reasons that I don't read as much as I do, as I would like to, is when I get into a book and I don't like it. Like, I always felt like I needed to finish it, and it would just drag on and on. Recently, I've decided, I heard someone else talk about this. If I don't like the book, I stop and I go to something else, man.
Yeah.
Just stop reading it and go to something else. And it's really like I've gotten through more books and found more useful information out of more books, just adopting that philosophy. Small, but
no, it's not. It's interesting. And thank you for those three for sure. It's interesting that you say that. I just listened to a podcast with George Raveling, a legendary college coach. Mm-hmm. And he said that he's an avid reader, right? And he buys books. That's what he does primarily. I think he's like 82 or something like that. He's George Raveling, if you don't know, also a crazy story, wound up on at the monument with Dr. King just by happenstance. And he was like, he acted as a security guard for him. And when Dr. King said his "I have a dream" speech, Dr. King gave him the written speech. So George Raveling has the original written "I have a dream" speech, which in actuality, the "I have a dream" portion was not written.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was something that he had already knew, that not Malcolm, how am I saying? Martin had already knew, or had already spoken before.
Right.
And somebody nudged him and that was sitting by him to say the "I have a dream" piece. But anyway, George Raveling said that with books, what he's learned to do is he says the author doesn't get the right to tell him how to read the book. And so he looks at each chapter as an individual book.
Oh, is that right?
So he goes through the index first, and he looks at a chapter and the name of the chapter, and whichever one of those chapters interests him first, he goes to that chapter and he reads it.
Interesting.
Right? And he treats that as a book, and then he decides to go on to the next one. And obviously this works with more with non-fictional books than fictional ones, right? Because those are more like stories that you have to read one after the other.
Exactly.
But everything else, he kind of looks and he decides how he's going to get the most out of these books. And he said something else that was powerful. He said that most books there's about 40% in those books that are useless, right? The rest of that percentage is what's useful for him. And so in terms of being able to get as much out of it as quickly as possible, he moves around.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. Yeah.
Man. I mean, so it's just
that's an approach.
To say, it is definitely an approach. I never really thought of it like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? When I buy this book, it's mine. I can do what I want with it and read it how I want to.
That's powerful.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Darius, I thank you for coming out, man, and sharing with us all these wonderful nuggets, man. And we'll definitely look forward to having you back on the show to talk a little bit more about League Swipe and about what's going on with Greenleaf and how much more you're helping the community.
Gold Leaf.
Dang, what did I say? Greenleaf?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the TV show. Thank you for the correction. Gold Leaf and how you're helping the community.
That's right.
Of building a community around small businesses, man. So I appreciate what you're doing and the work
Thanks
you're
for
doing.
having
Keep
me,
up the good work.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Darius. And if you're looking to grow your business financially, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Darius Grandberry over at Gold Leaf Partners. There's a ton of stuff that he could have offered. We just didn't have the time to put it in the episode, so I would recommend you look him up. I also have an update on the crowdfunding campaign for the League Swipe launch. If you're interested in being a part of a startup, a tech startup that is, and you want to look into getting equity, we always talk about how we would have loved to be in the room when they were offering up stocks for Facebook. Here's your opportunity. Darius will be launching this crowdfunding campaign April 8th, and I'll put the rest of the information in the show notes at the bottom of this episode, so please check that out. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this episode. You can find a link in the episode notes. Simply tap or swipe up over the cover art. You will also see other affiliate links pertaining to books or products mentioned in this episode. Please support our show by checking out these links if you're interested. Those clicks will provide our show with a small commission if you decide to purchase. If you like what you're hearing, we would love for you to give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe. I'm your host, Terrell Lindsay, and until next time, be awesome.